There we go. All right. I can see your comments. Hi, Renee. Hi, Stephanie. Darren. And I appreciate your patience. All right. Sharna Galo. I'm here. Lynn Davis. I'm happy to see everyone, and we will, in a moment, we're gonna get going here. I appreciate your presence. So as I was saying, this topic is important to all of us, and it's really, it's close, like I said, close to my own heart. The things that I want to talk about tonight are, like I said, Black people in COVID 2019. I want to cover 4 areas, and then give you a challenge. What the points I want to make are, what are we being told? That's the first thing. What are we seeing? What do we keep hearing? We're inundated all day long. And the second point is, I want us to look at statistics. The statistics, are the numbers really telling us the truth, or are they telling us something that we're missing? And the third point is, so who's dying? Why? And when I say who's dying, specifically, what's wrong with the people that are dying? And how can we do anything about it? How can we deal with it? Is there anything we can do? And the final thing is, the final point is going to be, what can you do, or what can I do with the information that we gather and what we hear? So let's go and look at something. Let's look at, what are they telling us? All right. When we look around and we see different articles, it's interesting to me, some of the articles that we see. And one of the ones that from the very beginning of COVID that made me really, things that make you go home, was when I began to get articles in my inbox, medical articles about the connection between angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor and angiotensin 2 receptor blockers. That's a whole mouthful. That is, in short, it's talking about what we call ACE inhibitors, and then something called ARB, which is an ACE blocker. Those are types of medication that we use to control hypertension. This article here talks a bit about that, but some of the article headlines that I've seen are almost like, wow, as they're looking at us as a Black people and this issue of COVID. I'm going to just read off some of them to you. One of the headlines said, quote, devastating impact on African Americans, speaking about COVID. One said, should I worry about blood pressure medications in COVID-19? Another was coronavirus and high blood pressure. What's the link? Why Black people face an uphill battle, and what people with high blood pressure need to know about COVID-19. Now, it's interesting to me that COVID-19 actually is connected to hypertension in Black people. Well, people who have high blood pressure. Yes, so I am really concerned about us. When you look at this abstract, that's what it's called, because that's what when you do research and when you submit your early findings, it's called an abstract, for those who don't know. And it talks about ACE2 and ARBs. The COVID virus, we all know it's a virus. When a person is infested with the COVID virus, there is a connection that it makes between the ARB, the ACE inhibitor block receptors that we have in the body. And that medication that we're seeing here on the screen, that medication, the way that it works is it creates more of those receptors. You hear what I said? The virus connects to those receptors. The drug that we take for hypertension creates more of those receptors. And so, something else that makes you, well, we listen and we hear about the statistics. So let's see what the statistics. Just a second here, and we'll see what the statistics tell us. COVID-19, devastating impact on African Americans. Of all the groups, lots of people have hypertension, but all the groups, blacks. I don't know how many of you watched the news earlier in April, but Dr. Fauci stood up in front of the president, the rest of the press corps, and he talked about what I guess he couldn't get away from, the fact that there is a health disparity in this country. And he was talking about that after seeing these stats. If you'll look, you see Louisiana has 32% of the population is African American, but yet 70% of the deaths in that city in that time of the month were African American. Illinois, 15% of the population is black. 42% of the deaths at that point were African American. Michigan, 14% black in the population, 41% deaths. North Carolina, 22% of the population, 22% death. Now this one blew me out of the water. We looked at Illinois as a state, but when you look at Chicago, you see Chicago, 30% of the population, 69% of the in the whole state. I mean, in the city, not even the state. That was mind-boggling to me. That was really just mind-boggling that they had so many people that were dying. It was almost solely black people. Hold on, I'm refreshing here, guys, my chat and see if it'll open back up. Yeah, it's not opening up here. Let's try it one more time, do a preview here. There we go. All right, so yeah, that to me was just mind-boggling. You know, some people say that, and I guess this is part of what Fauci was saying, when we look at the cities here on this map, I'm from Illinois, and I know that Illinois is in the Midwest. It has been in the Midwest is industrial. A lot of those towns were industrial and farming. When industrial left, they took a hard hit. But one of the things that we know about, we're in Bill, companies very often land. They land in communities of brown people, lower income people. And so people in these cities are exposed and at risk for many things because not only are they low income, but they also have, we know like in Flint, Michigan, their water was poisoned, right? They're exposed to all different types of toxins, so they have other factors that affect them, right? Well, let's go on to, let's talk about risk factors, okay? When we look at who is dying, we find that they listed all those who would have a risk factor. They said those who were obese, those who had hypertension. Actually, they didn't actually initially mention obesity, but that has come out. But it's hypertension, coronary artery disease, diabetes, lung disease, and cancer. If I was of the mindset, I would almost think that this was handpicked for us, because when you look at these classes of diseases, this population of brown people are the ones who have those diseases the most. And so let's talk about the risk factors. What and how do they play into COVID? When they look back at some of the numbers early on for the city of New York, when they began to talk about some of the things that were going on, what they found was that in New York, when they look at the correlation between those who died, Those who had hypertension and obesity, there was a connect. They were the most common illnesses that they found for those who died. They found that nearly 90% of the people in New York, 90% of the patients that were put on ventilators had obesity and hypertension, and they died. Let me repeat that. Those that had obesity and hypertension, when they were put on ventilators, 90%, they had a 90% death rate. In the age group from 18 to 65, that age group had 74.6% death rate when they were put on the ventilators. Those who were 65 years of age and older, if they had hypertension and were obese, 97.2% of them died. That is almost 100% surety for death rate. In any normal circumstances, when a person is placed on a ventilator, it's like a flip of the coin. It's 50-50. You have a chance of survival or a chance of dying. That's just normal usage of a ventilator. And now we see with COVID, those who are obese and hypertensive almost had a certain death rate. Here's what they know. They know that they haven't come out and said that it was because of the ventilator, but it leaves me to think that it was because of the ventilator, because they also shared their statistics. Those who did not go on a ventilator, who were obese and hypertensive, those in the age range of 18 to 65, they only had a 20% death rate. Those who were 65 and older, 65 years old and above, they only had a 27% death rate. So that makes you think, is it the disease, the virus that's killing people, or is it the ventilators? One of the things I found at the beginning, everyone was being rushed to be put on ventilators. But I have received an article recently that said, what I wish I had known a month ago. What I wish I had known a month ago. And it was about doctors saying what they've learned. When they first started this process, people were coming in, they were distressed, they could not breathe. And so, of course, the thought was we have to help them to breathe. And so we've given them oxygen, their saturation level. That's what we talk about. When you get that little thing put on your finger, it's measuring how much oxygen is in your blood. So the saturation level was low. They're distressed. And so they would put them on the ventilator because you can't breathe. We need to help you breathe. And they found out statistically that essentially that putting them on a ventilator probably has been helping to kill them, because what they realized is that what we describe as COVID-19 looks more like an oxygen deprivation, someone who's climbing high in altitude issues, versus then a traditional viral infective pneumonia, which COVID-19 is being described as. The next risk factor is coronary artery disease. According to CDC and WHO, those who have coronary artery disease have a greater risk of death from COVID. Now, why is that a concern? What are we talking about when we say coronary artery disease? Well, we're talking about heart disease. That's another word for it. We're talking about blockage of the arteries, hardening of the arteries, those type of things is what we call heart disease. When a person has COVID and the lungs are already compromised, they're sick, right? Because that's one of the symptoms or one of the things that happens. When the lungs are sick, then we find that oxygen exchange is not happening. And so the body does what it does naturally. When you don't have enough oxygen being passed in the blood, the heart will automatically kick up. It will start to beat faster so that it can try to compensate. It says, well, you know what? I'm not getting enough oxygen. So let me beat faster. So maybe if I move the blood faster, I will be able to Good. I will be able to give enough oxygen. So you have lungs compromised. You can't get the oxygen through. You're short of breath. And now your heart is racing, racing, racing. And you have this viral infection. So when you have coronary artery disease along with COVID, guess what happens? Now you have risk of heart attacks because the heart is working harder. When it's working harder and with the virus infection, it can cause, remember we said coronary artery disease, you have blockages from high cholesterol buildup. Now you can break off pieces of that cholesterol or fatty can break off, block a portion of the heart, cause a heart attack and kill you. Or it can pass through and go into the lungs somewhere else and cause a pulmonary embolism and you can't breathe and that makes it worse. Or it can go further in the system, go to the brain and cause a stroke. So now you have obesity as a risk, blood pressure is high, okay? And now you have coronary artery disease, which can cause a stroke and cause a heart attack. One of the other things that they've been finding in COVID patients recently is that also COVID patients are dying because they are not, they're having some abnormality in their clotting factors. And some patients are bleeding out, are bleeding and having problems, and others are having clots. And so, again, you're at risk for strokes. On top of all of that's going on. With diabetes, we all know that diabetes is a risk factor in and of itself. When a person has diabetes, if they're poorly controlled, that sets them up for risk of infections. It sets them up for poor healing, right? You know, you talk about a wound. One of the sorrows of diabetes is that it's a slow and excruciating disease because a person can get diabetes as a child, or they can acquire type 2 diabetes in their young adulthood and live many, many years with diabetes. But if diabetes is the disease that will take them out in the end, kills them in the end, before they go, they will have maybe lost a toe, a foot, up to the knee, above the knee. It's slow. Amputation, piece by piece, injuries, dialysis, all of those things. And so now you have diabetes and you have poorly controlled and you have high glucose. And now you're infected with COVID. And COVID then, which is a virus, it loves your blood because what? It's sweet. Your glucose is high, and it is a great environment for the replication of the COVID. And so now you are sicker because of your poorly controlled diabetes. The other thing with diabetes is that it increases inflammation. And when you have more inflammation and you have out of control inflammation, it weakens the immune system, making it harder for you to fight the virus or any other illness. Now think about this. Most people who have diabetes very often are obese and they have hypertension. And if they've had diabetes and uncontrolled hypertension and poorly controlled diabetes long enough, guess what? Then you have all these risks and you get COVID. And so it's almost like you're overwhelmed. This virus comes in and you are so oppressed that you're overwhelmed. And now they have another risk factor, which we say lung diseases. Which lung diseases? COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which is a type of disease of the lung where you don't do adequate expansion and the air sacs are compromised. Oh no, you don't want to go into COVID with that because here we come with the COVID virus attacking the lungs, and now the lungs are already weak, right? Emphysema, where the air sacs get brittle. And then you have asthma for those who are younger. And then you have pulmonary fibrosis, right? All of these things increase the risk of infection in the lungs. And now you're compromised. You can't change those things, some of them. And then here comes the virus. So you see this whole cascade and this whole grouping of diseases that Black people are prone to have not just one, and each of them have their own risk outside of COVID, where it increases the risk of death. And then you have two or three of them, and then you get COVID on top. So cancer is the sixth risk factor that they listed. And I think most of us can understand why cancer would be a problem. Well, cancer is because when you get cancer, you already have something that's growing that's out of control. And to be treated for cancer, you're getting either chemo or radiation, which are absolute immune killers. And so you have no defense, even against the most common things. And so now you're exposed to COVID. And so there you go. And then you're placed on a respirator. So we talked about this, and we've seen the research. I want to talk a little bit about symptoms. One of the things they've told us about symptoms is that in the beginning, we had a list of 3 symptoms. The list grew a bit, but the classic was, it said fever, cough, and shortness of breath, right? Now, there are people we're discovering who had COVID, probably had COVID, who they never mounted a fever. Matter of fact, you can have cough and shortness of breath, and they would not diagnose you with COVID. They would not treat you nor test you if you did not have a fever. There are people who complained of having more symptoms closer to flu, like aches, headaches. And one of the things they said, too, people reported having diarrhea. Some of the things that I read, people had bloody diarrhea. They would vomit. And they later determined that those were all COVID symptoms. Lately, in the past week or so, I've seen an article that says that we have 6 new COVID symptoms. And they said chills, and they identified these as 2 different things. Chills, repeated chills, so they must cycle. You may have chills like what's normal, and there must be some type of pattern that these chills, that they call repeated chills. Muscle pain, headache, sore throat, and fatigue. The fatigue they described is really severe. I mean, like people can't walk 5 to 10 feet without being extremely out of breath, and also being unable to move about because they're so tired. So they have an extremely abnormal fatigue. All right, I've lost you guys again on my okay, so no one's just saying anything. Okay, that's fine. All right, so one of the things that people were reporting, and it was what we call anecdotal, doctors were reporting it, and there was this connect between loss of taste and loss of smell. That's weird, right? Who gets a cold? You know, your nose gets stuffy and you say, I can't hardly smell, but you can still taste and you can really, truly still smell. But with COVID, people are really having this onset, this abrupt onset of loss of smell and loss of taste. And what they're saying now is that, in fact, it is the earliest symptom of COVID. If you have a change in your smell, sense of smell and taste, that is probably the first sign. Remember I mentioned about how COVID comes in? Let me talk a little about the physiology of this. Anytime we get the flu, it has to come through our mouth or nose or through our eyes, the moist membranes. And earlier on, people were saying, drink water. Every few minutes you need to drink water. Sip, 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 keep your membranes moist. Well, flu is transmitted through the mucous membranes, but when the membranes are dry, they're thinner. And so it's easier for the virus to penetrate, to come in. And when you keep them moist, because you're well hydrated, then the mucus lining is fatter. It's more resistant, as it were. It provides more of a barrier for it to penetrate. But what they've discovered, part of the reason for the loss of smell and taste being the first symptom is because when a person acquires COVID, it comes in through the nose, through the mouth, or through the nose. And when it goes to the back, it attaches to those ACE2 receptors, and they can move up into the head, right? Where they move up is what we call the olfactory bulb. It is the place where the sensory for, or the control center for smell and taste is. And when it goes into the head, that's the place that it goes, that it can penetrate and begin to replicate there first. And it is the first change that it makes in the system. And so it knocks out that olfactory system in that spot in the brain. And so when you may have no other symptom, yet you're not feeling anything, you're not achy, you don't have a fever, none of that, no cough, but your sense changes. You have acquired COVID. They said that 85 to 88% of those who have a loss of taste and smell suddenly had COVID. That's how accurate it is. Matter of fact, they want to use that. They're beginning to ask practitioners to ask that question when they talk to a patient or someone. Have you had a loss of sense of smell or taste? Remember I said we want to talk about three things. So we talked about who's dying. And so let's talk a little bit about, like I said, how we catch it. It is amazing, like I said earlier to me, about those ACE2 sensors that we have, that this virus can connect to those sensors, those receptors, not sensors, but receptors. And that's what they need. Now, the question, remember I said there was an article that said, there are several articles that said, coronavirus and high blood pressure, what's the link? Should I worry about blood pressure medications? And the article that I showed you, it was talking about that same connect with high blood pressure. Let me go back to that. Let's see if we can get back to that one. Well, it was saying that, there we go. Let's open that one up. All right. That this virus, initially they were saying that they were concerned about there being a connect between the medication. And now they're saying, oh, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, we're looking at it still. But now we think that it may help you, that this medication may actually help you to protect. They're saying that the ACE2, that the medication, the inhibitors the medication creates may actually be a block. It creates extra receptors more than your body is able to. That's why you have high blood pressure. And so it creates extra receptors. So if you're infected with the COVID virus, they're saying now that they think that that virus is going to be distracted, as it were, and connect to the receptors on the drug instead of the receptors on the cell. I don't know about that. And I'm not really sure if I agree with that. But who am I to say? That's just me talking. They say don't stop your medication. But I would certainly, if you're concerned, I would say absolutely that you should talk to your physician and ask him about if he can switch, if you're concerned, to switch you to another medication. All right. So that you're not worried about that. And that's your right to be able to say that. And there are other medications. If you have to be on something, there are other medications that can be used for your blood pressure. So you don't have to be on a medication that you believe may put you at risk. So the next point I wanted to talk about is, one second here. Is what can we do about it? We've talked about what they're telling us. We've looked at statistics. We are at risk. There's no way around that. We are the ones that are getting this. however this virus works, it focuses and it seems to have the greatest detriment with those who have those risk factors. And that seems to be us as Black people. And so I would like to say, what, like I said, what can we do about it? The answer to the question is yes, we are at increased risk. If you have any of those things that I mentioned, hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, if you're overweight, you're at risk. All right. So we can do one of two things. We can look at all the things we talked about, the risk factors that our neighborhoods are, whatever they are. We have food deserts that we've been exposed. They've built things in our neighborhood that put our health at risk. Our water is tainted and contaminated. All of the different things that you can think of, right? The environment is polluted. Whatever you can think of to make a long, long list. If you want to, what's the word? If you want to make excuses for your illness, then you can do that. Because what in fact I believe and is dedication and eating what you want, as they say in medical, feeding your diabetes. You know you have it and you probably shouldn't eat that. But you know what? You just increase your insulin. Or, you're on medication, you're not really worrying about it because you have the medication. Why worry? You can make a commitment to be ill. Or you can take a stand and say, you know what? As I look at this, so many things I find in this here grand country of ours, when it comes to the Black community, so many things center and circle around. We keep landing in the same spot, which is our health. Each one of us has a choice. What will the choice be? Will we stay sick? We don't have to be. It's amazing to me because of these risk factors, every single one of them, minus cancer, we have control over. What do you mean? I don't want to be diabetic. How did we get diabetic? If you were not born with it, acquired it, which then means it's a probability that you can give it back, right? That's a saying I have. So if you acquired diabetes, you acquired hypertension, you became overweight, okay, heart disease, all of it is lifestyle related. It is reversible, but the choice is up to you. You have to choose. Do you want to have that? And even in the midst of COVID-19, while it's a risk factor, you don't have access to go to the doctor except for what's necessary. Many people are afraid to even go. But one thing that has happened that I don't think that anyone anticipated is that it's made people more aware of their health. It's made them more aware of the power that they have. We don't have to depend on the system for a drug. Many are doing things to build their own immunity because that is the basis of all of this. What will you choose for your lifestyle? The CDC has told you they can't help you. Who has told you they can't help you? So any cures or health that you will have will be by your own making. And I want to share something with you. There are things that we can do to build our immune system. One, the natural things. We need to eat right. That is first. All right. You can't think that you're going to have a healthy body if you put toxic things in it constantly. You cannot do it. You just can't build it. You can't build a brick house out of cardboard. It won't work. So we need to start with nutrition. And yes, every neighborhood doesn't have the best stores, but many of us travel all over the place and get the latest, whatever we want to buy, be it activities, clothing, right? So what are we going to choose? So I would say start with your nutrition, eat better, more fruits, more vegetables, exercise. You cannot be healthy and sitting down. Literature says, not x-rays, but reports say that sitting is equivalent. Sedentary behavior is equivalent to smoking cigarettes. Did you hear what I said? Sitting is equivalent to smoking cigarettes. I don't smoke. I don't want to have the lungs of somebody who does. I've made a point consciously, so I need to move. I have my own health challenges. but I try to get up to move because I understand the importance of it. Water. How many of us don't drink water? We say, well, I don't like water. Your body doesn't really care what you like. It needs what it needs, and we need to drink water. And the minimal is half of your weight needs to be, if you weigh 150 pounds, you should be drinking 75 ounces of water, minimal. And if you talk as much as I do, you probably should be drinking another 25 ounces, okay? So water, sunlight. One of the things we know is viruses don't do well in the sun. So get out sunlight. We have vitamin D deficiencies. And that's across the culture, not just Black. Everyone in America these days has vitamin D deficiency. So the minimum we need to do is try to get out and get exposed to the sun. If you have diabetes, when you exercise, it brings your blood pressure down. It will bring your blood sugar down. So you get 3 great strokes from one activity. And so get up and do your exercise. Have some self-control. All right. There's a saying, people say that moderation, it's okay to have anything in moderation. That is absolutely a lie. And it is a deception from the devil. You cannot have everything in moderation. You would never pick up arsenic and take a little. Say, well, I'm only going to take a little bit. It's only arsenic. I just want to taste it. We know that doing drugs, you're not supposed to do drugs in moderation. If you do crack, you should do no crack, no heroin, none of that. Those are no's. So the things that are good for us, just because they're good, doesn't mean we get to be gluttonous. All right. So we need to have self-control in what we eat that's good, and don't eat things or do things that are unhelpful for us. Fresh air. People, when you're stressed, if you will take deep breaths, it will help relieve your stress. Getting outside in the fresh air and breathing deeply brings your blood pressure down. When you're outside and you're moving and you're breathing deeply, it improves your circulation. It increases the oxygenation in your blood. That will help your brain, okay? Deep breathing clears your brain. The other thing is that exercise will also help your brain because the blood is moving, all right? And rest. How many of us run until we can't? When we sit down, we're like this. I'm so tired. You're exhausted. All right. You come to the end of the week and you've run, you've given your all, and you're just exhausted at the end of the week. We need to limit. We need to have a shutdown time. Sleep is important. The body is made on a cyclic, we call it circadian rhythm. God built it so that there is a circle of time. There are things it should do at a certain time, and then there are things it does at a different time. So we need to rest. We know that even they're saying we need 7 hours of sleep. Minimal, we should be getting 7 hours of sleep. If you do all the things I talked about and you're sleep deprived, guess what? Your immune system still is going to be suppressed, because sleep is I say to my husband all the time, sleep is the great equalizer. He has an extremely stressful job, and they have him up and moving at any given hour. But he gets up very early in the morning, say 3, and he goes to run. By 4 in the morning, he's already done his run. But he may go to bed at 6 o'clock. And I say, with all the stress he has, that is what keeps him alive above everything, because he gets enough sleep. When we sleep, we don't only physically rest our muscles and we're sleeping, our mind is resting, but our organs rest also. And so when we sleep, we should sleep with food, without food in our stomach. So don't go to bed right after you've eaten, because your stomach is an organ and it needs to rest also. But when we sleep, there's something that happens also, that's repair. Not only rest, but repair. So you need enough time to sleep to repair. And it is true that we need so many hours before midnight, because you can get 5 hours after midnight because you went to bed at midnight, and it will not do the same thing for your body that if you went to sleep before midnight. Because remember, the circadian rhythm that our body is on, it follows it regardless of what we do. It is following its rhythm. All right. So rest and sleep, and then trust. All of this, trust in God. You know, everyone may not, but we need to trust in God. As we hear all this news, we're inundated, we're stressed, people are out of work, their children are home, they have bills to pay, family members are sick, you're worried if you're going to get sick, you may have spent money, you don't know how you're going to pay your bills, all of those things. But we need to trust God. He is in control. He is the one who sets high and he looks low, and no matter what it seems like or feels like, God is in control. And he cares about each one of us. So what can we do? All of those things: nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, self-control, temperance, air, rest, and trusting in God. Now, all of those things we can do and we need to do. But there are things also that we can do nutritionally. And in building the immune system, there are many things that are available to us. And as I have listened to various people who are in holistic care, not allopathic, because allopathics is told they have nothing for us. So those who are looking to natural, the holistic way, besides the foods, we're eating healthy, right? But there are other things we need to do to boost our immune system. Yes, he is the answer, Renee. Yes, that is New Start. There are things we need to do to boost our immune system. Now, there are several. I'm going to show you some products. This one is called NAC, right? NAC, you see the letters. It is an antioxidant, and it stands for N-acetylcysteine. And like I said, it is an antioxidant, and it has been studied, and it has been shown that it has boosts the immune system, and it does fight flu. And so we know the antioxidants are good for the body, and they help us. All right. So NAC is a product that you can use. The study showed that 1,200 milligrams or so. So you can look at the bottom and see what it says. Selenium is a supplement that you can use. Oops. Selenium. This one is 200, and it's way more than you need in a day. Where can you get selenium? So you don't have selenium. You don't have the money to buy a supplement. You can eat Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts have selenium in them. You see, here's what's interesting. God creates something, and then we say, hey, what is that? What does that do? That food is really good, and we find out what's in it, and then we make one, right? We make something. This is not the version that God made, right? But this is a version we can use. But if you cannot afford this, then eat nuts. You can eat selenium, and you'll get selenium. Selenium is also good for the immune system. Actually, selenium is good for a lot of things. If you have thyroid issues too, but we'll talk about that another day. But selenium for the immune system. Elderberry. This is one of the products that I make. Elderberry. Elderberry has been shown also that it fights flu. It helps with the immune system, right? Now, when COVID first started, everybody was running to get elderberry, and you couldn't find elderberry. You still can't find elderberry. But someone had said, just in case you're one who heard, that, you're not supposed to take elderberry. You probably shouldn't take elderberry during COVID because it creates what we call a cytokine storm. Well, that is something that happens when people have COVID. They have this humongous response, and it's called a cytokine storm, which cytokines are a protein that the body puts out when it's part of an inflammatory reaction. And so in COVID, there's an overreaction, and that's part of the disease process. It doesn't happen in everyone, but there are many it does. And that's what's happening, part of what happens in the lungs. And that's part of what kills people, is that cytokine storm. Well, cytokines are a part of the normal immune system. And when you trigger your immune system, there's a burst of cytokines. Without that burst, you get no response in your immune system. Elderberry helps with that. There is no literature that has been shown, nothing's ever been shown, that this elderberry can trigger a cytokine storm. It is a good food. It is a good thing, and you can drink it as a tea. This is a liquid, as a syrup. Like I said, in my garden, health, and lifestyle, that's me. This is one of my products. So you can take that. You need vitamin D. Vitamin D is a precursor. This is a liquid form of it. Let me see here. This is a liquid form of vitamin D, and there's different dosages. I won't tell you what dosage, but when you get it, you do need to get D3. There are two forms of D. That's D2 and D3. D3 is the one that's actually stored, and that when we measure, you can measure too, but that is not the one you want, is D3. Now this is liquid drops. I take this. I try to take it daily. And there's other forms. D can be as a tablet. Then there's zinc. This is zinc lozenge. Probably I need to take one actually right now. But let me show you. It looks like a pill. But this one's actually a lozenge. Whoops. You see that? Here. This looks like a little pill. All right. And it was recommended taking the lozenges when you've been out. If you think you've been exposed, zinc destroys viruses. It stops them from proliferating, multiplying. So zinc is something that you can take. And you can take this zinc lozenges. This is up to 75 milligrams a day. It comes in 50 milligrams. It comes in 25 milligrams. But it must say lozenge. That's the one you can suck. What else is there? All right, vitamin C. I don't know if you can see this, but this is vitamin C. You can take vitamin C. We know that vitamin C, there we go. This is my own vitamin C powder. Vitamin C is what we call a water-soluble vitamin. And if you take a lot of it, it won't store. You'll never overdose on it. What you will do, though, it will make you go to the bathroom. If you have taken a vitamin C to what you hit what we call saturation, that is when it makes your stool loose. That is the dose you should take. You want to take enough that makes your stool loose, and then take about 10% down a notch, and that's the amount of vitamin C you should take a day. This vitamin is a microfine vitamin C powder, and it only takes about a quarter of a teaspoon. And you mix it in 8 to 12 ounces of water and drink it. You can take it 1 to 3 times a day. And that dosage is 1,000 milligrams. It's a gram, all right, of vitamin C. Something else that you can utilize. Colloidal silver. This is not mine, but colloidal silver. You can take. Colloidal silver has been around a lot of years. It's very old. We used colloidal silver before we found, in the years early before antibiotics, we used colloidal silver. It's used in many, many ways. Okay. All these things help support your system and help to strengthen your immune system. What else is there that I use? There are a couple other products that I have created on my own. One is this little tincture here. It's called Green Magic. And it does all kinds of things. It's an immune builder. Yes, colloidal silver, Shona. Let me back up to that. Colloidal silver is like water. It looks like water. And it literally has silver element in it. It's been electrically charged, and it puts off silver element, small amounts, and they have medicinal properties. Okay. So back to my Green Magic. This is an herbal product that actually over time God helped me to create. I was diagnosed, I started creating it when my child was small, and I used to help her with various illnesses. But I was diagnosed with lupus years ago. How old is my daughter? 20-something years ago. And at first they thought I had rheumatoid arthritis. But anyway, and I began to use chlorophyll, liquid chlorophyll, and various herbs. And that's what this is. Liquid chlorophyll is equivalent to blood. It's just like our blood, except the centers of the cell of the chlorophyll is magnesium, and our blood has iron. But otherwise, it's almost identical. So when you take these drops, it does a lot of things for you. It helps with the immune system. It has helped relieve pain. It has helped me with energy. It's a great support. It's called Green Magic. And what else have I used as a part of my support for my immune system personally? Um, One of the things I've learned is that iodine, like zinc, it has amazing powers. But everyone cannot use iodine because some people have thyroid issues. But iodine, somewhere I learned about iodine. And what I do when I come in the house, I sometimes take an iodine spray if I've been out, and I will spray it in the air like this and kind of stand under it and sniff it and let it fall into my nose, because iodine also kills virus. Yes, Renee, Green Magic did save your life. I remember that. And so I spray this iodine spray. It's a diluted version of iodine. And I just literally inhale it. Okay. So, and it's on my face. So if anything's on my face, also it's killing the virus that's on my face and in my nose. And I will squirt it in the back of my throat. There is a third product that I've also put together, and I call it War Drops. And it has multiple of the things that I've named here in it, so that you can have a one-stop shop. And whenever I've gone out, or if I get any kind of little tickle, I feel like it's a scratch or something doesn't feel right, I take my drops, my War Drops, and I put them in water, and I'll drink it. And within 15-20 minutes, I have relief. That tickle is usually gone. So there are many things. There's other things. There are herbs. Yes. Sherna, I see your question. Yes. Iodine. Yes. It does kill. It kills viruses. Matter of fact, we know that it kills viruses because we use a form of iodine in hospitals. It's called iodine povidone, and it's not green. It's a brown. It's a brown color. When we go into surgery and before we cut a patient, their skin is prepped with iodine because it kills viruses and things like that, bacteria, viruses. And so it is a sterilizing agent. And as a nurse, I've cleaned around wounds and things like that over the years. Betadine, absolutely, that's what we call it. But the real name is iodine. Povidone iodine is the same thing. And so, yes, we know that kills. That's not what this is, though. You cannot drink this one. It's another form of iodine. This one, the one that I'm speaking of, the iodine I'm speaking of, is iodine potassium. All right. So it's not the betadine version, but it's still iodine. But iodine does kill bacteria, viruses, and things like that. So what else? What do they tell us to do? So those are just some of the things in my arsenal. And everybody can decide what they want to do for themselves. Like I said, vitamin C. But one of the key things is what? Hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer. All right. So hands clean. I like the liquid. I do have hand sanitizer. Also available as part of my products. So, but I like the liquid because it's lighter, it's not sticky, it's spray. You can actually use, when you have the liquid, the spray, you can disinfect your phone, your computer. With the gel, it's too sticky, it's too thick. So you can use it in multi-purposes. I keep this in my vehicle whenever I go out. I squirt my steering wheel, my doorknob, all of that, okay, before I get in my vehicle. Or once I've gotten in my stick shift, those kind of things. So those are things that you can do for your own health, right? To build your immunity and the other things that I mentioned to you. But again, the power is yours. And I challenge you to take the power, do something, make a change in your health. Let us not be the statistic again. All right. Wherever you are, ask God to help you. You can try, make a change. You do not have to stay where you are. And hand sanitizer is key if you don't have water. Water is really the key, and soap. You want to wash your hands with soap, but when you cannot, this is the first option, all right, is to sanitize, all right? Sanitize. Now, if you have any questions, I'm watching the feed, pop up your question. And otherwise, who am I again? I am Amelia Rochelle Narain. I am a nurse practitioner, and I am the owner and founder of In My Garden Health and Lifestyle. And you can reach out to me. You can go to my website at inmygardenhealth.com and check me out there. And if you have questions, you can reach out to me at info@inmygardenhealth.com. Again, that's inmygardenhealth.com is the website, and my email is info@inmygardenhealth.com. And yes, soap and water is the best option. So with that, I appreciate everyone that has come. We are at risk. We are at increased risk, but we can change that. You know what would be wonderful? If when this COVID virus thing dies down a bit, Renee, I see you. You're going to have to get some more sanitizer from me. But when this COVID thing dies down a bit, wouldn't it be fantastic and such an unexpected outcome that the nation would be healthier, that you would be healthier, that your family would be healthier, because you have made a decision not to be committed to your illness anymore, that you want to make a change your lifestyle. And even with that, if you have health challenges and you would like to work with someone, again, reach out to me. Again, at my email, or you can go to my website, reach out to me, and we can talk about and we can make arrangements to do a health consult, and we can begin working together. All right. With that, God bless. I wish you all well. Be safe. Be healthy. I'm signing off.